But ask your question, we'll find a way of answering it.
Okay, it was really, I suppose it was more directed to him because you had a very close relationship going forward, and I wanted to see how he views his future in the Treasury. Your leaving is, on some level, you're talking about a defense of the Constitution, so does he feel vulnerable at this point? What is he at all considering his future?
The journalists who are next to mics, please press the mics around you. There's one gentleman.
It's General City Press. When you returned to South Africa on Tuesday, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And reportedly visited the 2 hours before hearing in Pretoria and visiting the court afterwards. Precisely when you told that to 2 hours, were you confronted with this alleged intelligence report at that point? Precisely what were you doing?
Are you saying that we were confronted with this intelligence report?
I'm asking.
You didn't ask initially. So as I say in court, reformulate your question. Go ahead.
Okay. You were at the 2 hours on Tuesday morning. Why were you there? Was it to be confronted with this alleged intelligence report?
Arabi and Ranjay, that will be the rest for the first round.
Considering the events then of the past couple of hours, are you getting a sense that there are more people who will be willing to follow you out the door, not just at National Treasury, but as well with regards to the rest of cabinet? Sorry, I'm
Ranjini Mansami from Daily Maverick. Minister and Deputy Minister, I think you saw in your positions, I told somebody else you saw it, so I'll address you in that way. You know very well what's at stake. You know what your ambit of responsibilities are as Minister and Deputy Minister. What is the urgency for removing you? What is the reason for your removal? What is this grab about? What do South Africans need to look for as that's going to unfold in the next coming days and weeks as the grab of the National Treasury takes hold?
No, we have a very proud democratic tradition here. So we don't mind consulting with each other in your presence. But don't misread it, eh?
Can I just say the following? Because I think many of the questions seem to be driving to a particular point. I can see. If you look at the events in South Africa in the last couple of years, should I say, I think there are certain patterns that you have seen, events that point to particular interests being protected, being consolidated, being deepened. And I think probably the state of capture report, which I don't know, it's called state of capture, state capture report, is probably the pinnacle of that point, where it probably consolidates a picture of a state that is increasingly, or institutions that are increasingly becoming vulnerable. Institutions that are increasingly being centers for attack, in many instances to be blunt, for looting, actually. So that's a reality that we have. You don't need to be a genius to see the trend in the country. And so it's important. I'm not going to interpret for you what this means, what the agency is, as Ranjani is asking. What I'm telling you is that you have in front of you history unfolding. And at the center of that history that is unfolding is a democracy in a sense, and the democracy in a sense, and economy in a sense, being undermined by all sorts of things. And some of those are actually diversion of state resources to serve particular interests. Now, the story of our state-owned enterprises is a known story. So you just need to read public documents called annual reports. You also need to read a couple of other statements that show you. So I think South Africans you have a responsibility, I keep on making the point of connecting these dots to say, what is the political moment in the country? And if we're not doing that, I can tell you now, by the time I think the disaster hits the country, we'll actually be accused of having lived with our eyes wide shut, when actually political decay is deepening. I'm not answering the question, but I'm saying that's the context, by the way. And some of the questions you're asking about, what is it, agency and so on and so on, I would say find the answer within the context I'm painting. And I can be more frank than on these issues, but I think we have a challenge. It's a national challenge. And it's not about Pravin Gordhan, it's not about journalists, it's not about some of the people that, clearly there is something that as a country we need to be worried about. And I'm not going, I think that if you really go back to the State of Capture report and a whole range of other documents and the Denton report, the whole range of these reports circulating, what picture are they painting? What are they saying about where we're going? I'm not going to tell you what, but I think that gives you a context to understand some of the questions you're raising about agency. The report is nonsensical. I mean, to be frank. I mean, whether you read it from whatever angle you read it, even if you consider language of it, by the way, it's like it's written by amateurs. Even if you consider the logic of it, it's fundamentally so flawed. South Africa is an open economy. So how do you not mobilize investors outside of the country to ensure that they invest in the economy? An open economy, how can it be killed by two individuals, by the way, if you're saying you are destroying individuals? I would say you read also the text. There are families that are mentioned in the report, which Treasury seeks to undermine. Since when have families become, I mean, families are important, but it seems that increasingly we have those that are becoming a national agenda. So I'm saying that's the reading that you must make, not us.
Bottom line is that we don't want to spoil your reading pleasure. But let me reinforce the point the Deputy Minister is making, and that is that connect the dots. Don't look at individual dots. And even if the State of Capture report is 1/3 true, that should be concerning us. You don't have to prove every single thing. Why is Denel going to court against the Treasury? Why is Denel insistent upon VR laser and Denel Asia and so on? In what circumstance do you get the chairperson of the board of an SOC attacking a minister of government publicly? Why is that chairperson allowed to continue to do so? Why isn't that person called to account in a democratic, open South Africa and told to behave? They are heads of other institutions, one in particular that you will be familiar with that I might be referring to, right? No other head of institution talks about or to the political head that he is responsible to in the manner that he does, and get away with it. So, why undermine legitimate authority is a question that all South Africans should ask themselves. And we're not raising this because it's a parochial issue. As my good comrade here has pointed out, these are serious national issues. And when, if you don't mind me saying so with great respect, when the media only chases sound bites and doesn't paint a complete picture, right, and doesn't represent the facts in sufficient detail so that ordinary South Africans are empowered with both the facts and sufficiently rounded knowledge which enables them to ask the question, are these guys representing our interests? Or are they doing their own thing? A democracy can only work if citizens are informed. A democracy can only work if those citizens get the opportunity to question us and ask us to explain ourselves, not get away with all the things that we want to get away with. And that's a dream that many generations of freedom fighters have sacrificed a lot of their lives for, and literally so as well. So coming to the first question, Barry, and I must commend you, it was morning, by the way, when you were speaking, commend you on the accuracy of some of your reporting. I was listening to how you tried to communicate the complex matters in court, and you did extremely well, if I may say so. What the SG has in mind is for the SG to explain, right? But I think he's set sufficient, a sufficient amount in the public domain to indicate to us that as a member of the top 6 of the ANC, he's not entirely happy, and that he doesn't feel empowered enough in those circumstances to have had the opportunity and the ability to influence a key set of decisions. And I'm sure that within the structures of the ANC, these are matters that must be taken up and dealt with, but it's not for me to actually comment on that process. Safe to say that if indeed decisions are being made elsewhere, which determines the future of institutions, which impact on the future of our country, then we should all be very afraid.
In any case, Minister, you should also probably take the point a little bit further. The fact that you have parallelism politically and in terms of authority, it's not ahistorical. It happens in many societies when increasingly you see decision-making taken outside of the formal structure. When in fact structures, when democracy just becomes a formality, actually decisions get taken elsewhere and get transported to legitimize into formal structures. I'm not saying that's the reality, read for yourself, but that's probably the biggest danger, because it then questions the very fundamentals of democracy. Sorry, Minister.
No, that's fine. That's your job, is to add to what I say.
I'm sure you see why we should celebrate our fire.
So, Warren, your question is in a sense answered by this as well. But to now add to the point that my colleague has made, South Africa has a very rich history of community mobilizing and mass mobilization, which in different periods during our history served us extremely well, from the Alexandra bus boycott in the 1950s, the potato boycott of farmers in Mpumalanga that Ruth first exposed, to the period in which we grew up in the 70s and 80s politically, and where millions of people were actually involved through structures, whether it's trade unions, women's organizations, youth organizations, civic organizations, and so on. So what should the public do? Organize. Organize. Because fragmented voices don't have the weight that is required. It's organized voices. And I'm not saying that as an individual. I'm a trained political activist who received his training, just like my colleague did, in the ANC. So what I'm saying is ANC policy, if you like. It's the ANC ethic of being accountable to the masses and getting the masses involved, not on the basis of false narratives, but on the basis of legitimate knowledge and information that empowers them to be agents of change and empowers them to change their own conditions and their own lives. We also received our training in the Communist Party, by the way, where we say, the masses make history, not individuals. Individuals matter, yes, very important. But it's only when the masses get involved, and we have proof of that in South Africa as well. Sorry about the lesson in politics. Kate, the question of the future of the senior officials, as I said earlier on, they are all highly committed South Africans and public servants, and treat them with respect their professional knowledge, debate with them in a mature and respectful way, and create an environment where open policy discussions can happen. And I'm sure they'll be willing to serve another 10 years for this institution and for South Africa. But each of them will make up their own minds about how they deal with these questions. But for now, they are here. Revolt, sorry, I had to ask you to reformulate your question. We visited the SG because upon landing we were intrigued by this recall from London, and we thought we could make an important contribution, as I outlined earlier on. So between the Director General and myself, we said, hey, let's phone the SG, find out what's going on. So we were not confronted with anything, just for the record. We had a 20-minute conversation, reported to him about our trip and what we were attempting to do, and also reassured him that Mr. Jonas is in South Africa, much to his surprise. And yeah, I mean, nothing happened there that had any relationship to what happened last night. That's for the record, but he can comment on his discussion. Arabile, do we expect more people to follow us out of the door? Well, we're not walking out of the door voluntarily. And that's a decision that each person must make in their own right, depending on how they feel about the current environment. And Ranjani, your question was, I think, answered more than adequately a moment ago. So, the next 5.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. Last. Go ahead, man. Hi. Can you go get closer to the mic?
There's one here if you want to use it. We're just testing how flexible you are, you see, and how agile you are.
It's Catherine from the Times newspaper and website. This is a blunt question. Is the Public Investment Corporation funds, the trillions of ordinary South Africans' retirement funds, are they safe now? Because the Deputy Finance Minister has the last say of the PRC, and is it going to be okay now?
Walter Carlson from the TVC News, Minister and Deputy Minister. I'm wondering if you think President Zuma is still fit to be president, and do you think that he is corrupt or merely being manipulated by people who are corrupt?
Good morning, Minister. It's Anton May from Pretoria. I want to add to that question. If you have to vote on a motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma now, what would you vote?
Colleagues, can we allow the press conference to proceed, please?
And then following your participation in the meetings with the ratings agencies, do you think that your hard work has been undone following your removal? Do we see another ratings downgrade in the face? Thank you.
Following up on that, Peter Grant with NPR, you said you're still a member of Parliament. You plan on staying there for a period. How will you vote on the no confidence vote? Will the ANC get 50 defections?
You just asked that question.
Well,
You wasted your opportunity. You wasted your opportunity.
How will you vote on the no confidence vote?
Hi, Ministers. Steve from Jacaranda FM News. I just wanted to know from you guys, will you guys be resigning?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry. I wanted to know, will you be resigning as MPs? What do you think the future holds for the ANC come 2019? And do you believe the Guptas have captured Zuma?
Good afternoon, Ministers. Just adding on to one of those questions, so as you know, the Moody's ratings next week, and a lot of financial heavyweights like Fitch and Anglo-American and PineBridge all said that your axing would be very devastating to South Africa. So what would you think the next step is to try and get us out of the dog box of the investment community?
Good day, Minister. Several speakers here from the Sunday Times. You spoke about court cases earlier, Minister. I just want to revisit one of those court cases. The matter in which you are an applicant asking the court for a declarator in the exercise of public power between the relationship of the client and the bank. How important is the outcome of that matter to you? Now that what has happened yesterday, is it still as important as it was when you were minister? And then DM, perhaps flowing from your reaction to this intelligent report.
Intelligent or intelligence?
Intelligence. And all of these other sort of attacks that have taken place against the Treasury. Do you believe that there's a family in South Africa that is a national keyword?
John?
Minister John Bailey from ENCA. Barbados lost their urgent court application this morning to buy Habib Bank, and you've been accused by them of dragging your feet in this process. So if we can get your comment on that. And then the other question would be, who sent you the comeback SMS?
It's Mary Lisa with Finweek. A lot of the people I know today are really in despair. Do you really think that it's possible to halt or reverse the trend that we've seen over the past 2 years, which I think has already been communicated and voiced by much of the media?
Last,
Good afternoon, Ministers.
Something wrong with somebody's arithmetic about 10, eh?
I wanted to ask, just behind. Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, has firstly the President given you the decency to call you and talk to you about the decision? And second of all, what has your relationship been with the President since you've come into the position of Finance Minister? Do you communicate with him, and have you interacted with him on a regular basis regarding all the trips that you do and how your department is run? Thank you.
okay, over to the Minister.
Is ANN 7 here? So we're going to give them a special slot for a question. Because they have a lot to say with so-called independent analysts. So, and they have a lot to say when they want to attack us and malign us and try to disgrace us. So where's ANN 7? Any question? No, this is very fair. This is very fair. Would you like to be the subject of daily and nightly attacks? This is very fair. All we're saying, there shouldn't be any booing, so I agree with that. All I'm saying is that, you see, why must we constantly deal with people who are never seen in the public domain? Never. But they mastermind all these attacks on family, make false accusations, pay somebody called Bell Pottinger. You know them? Yes. PR firms are hired, millions of rands are spent. To do what? To do what? To malign democratic institutions of South Africa. But why don't they come out face to face? Let's have a debate face to face. let me get back to the questions. You see, that's fair. That's fair. Because you can't, have fake news and fake Twitter accounts and all of that stuff attacking family members who have nothing to do with the Treasury. You want to attack the two of us? Go ahead. Go ahead. Why you attack family members? Would all of you, whether you're in the media or anywhere else, like that to happen? That's not fair play. Play fair. And be open and be transparent. We are an open democracy in South Africa. We've got nothing to hide. But of course, I'm sure we'll hear a mouthful pretty soon. PIC funds, are they safe? Let's just set the record straight. Firstly, the PIC funds, a PIC is what you call an asset manager. It invests funds on behalf of the Government Employees Pension Fund. The Government Employees Pension Fund has a board, that's 50% employees and 50%, let's call it government appointed. But in terms of the legislation that the GEPF, that's what it's known, is operating by, government is the final guarantor. So if there's any actuarial problem, any, let's call it shortage of funds, it's the fiscus that must ultimately.
All right, we seem to have lost that feed there, but really I think all right, I'm just being told that it is back. Let's go back now to former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and his deputy in SABC Jonas briefing the media.
Fiscus that must stand as guarantor and foot the bill if there's any shortage of funds in that regard. And that's why as the Treasury has to keep a careful eye on what's going on there. Secondly, it is not written anywhere in law that the Deputy Minister chairs the board of the PIC. Had I stayed in this job a little bit longer, we were both agreed that we need to get an independent chairperson for the board of the PIC, like any board anywhere in the commercial world, so that there's no political influence in the way the PIC is run. And that's a recommendation I'll make to Minister Gigaba as well, that perhaps he wants to consider that as we go forward. So the team that we have at the PIC is an extremely professional and competent team. The Deputy Minister has worked a lot more closely with them, so if he wants to comment a little later, he's quite welcome to do so. The President and the questions that were asked about that, I don't think it's for me to comment on right now. That should be addressed to the right quarter. There are 2 or 3 questions on the motion of no confidence. I think I'll be guided by my conscience when and if that actually happens, and hopefully do the right thing, whatever that might be. So you can come back here in a short while and ask me the question again. Have the work we've done with the ratings agencies been undone? No, I don't think so. And I don't think any South African would want the good record that we've established with labor and the business sector and the kind of confidence that we've tried to generate over the last 18 months or so post 9/12 must be undone in any way. Because any undoing of that confidence, any decline in the rating status of the country is going to hurt ordinary South Africans. And ordinary South Africans shouldn't pay the price for any nonsense created elsewhere. So all of us actually should work towards ensuring that the ratings remains within the investment grade side, so that all South Africans can be rest assured that the best is being done for them, and certainly the Treasury staff are very committed to that. What's the future for the ANC in 2019? Well, I think a lot of ANC senior people will be concerned that the trend that was observed in the local government elections is a trend that needs to be reversed, is a trend that should not indicate decline any further. And because the ANC is still, I believe, an organization that has, by and large, the interests of all South Africans at heart, and is based on very sound principles. It is the organization, if it can get its act right, that should continue to lead the democratic government that we have in South Africa. But it will, and there are many who say this, including many senior people, trust in a political party is earned. You don't have it by right. You do the right things, you earn the trust. If you do the wrong things, you lose trust. And certainly there are many who would want to make sure that the kind of trust that the ANC has had for a very long period of time, over 100 years, is something that we can regain in order that 2019 goes the ANC's way. But hard work needs to be done to actually achieve that. The Guptas and their influence on the president, again, that's for you to judge. It's not for us to comment. In a kind of wider context that the Deputy Minister was actually indicating. And I mean, if there are any questions about the President, please direct them to the Presidency, because that's the best place to have them answered. Moody's next week and out of the dog box. I don't think we're quite in the dog box. I think there are a lot of good things that are happening in South Africa. The Rand until yesterday was still the best performing currency amongst emerging markets. The growth dynamic in emerging markets is very positive. There are sort of green shoots that can be seen in the global economy. And that was a conversation when we attended the G20 meeting recently. But it's up to us as South Africans and the different constituencies that we're trying to bring together to inspire confidence in our economy, firstly. Secondly, demonstrate that we're capable of bringing about some of the reforms, for example, good governance in SOCs. And thirdly, convince people that the so-called political noise in South Africa is normal political noise in any society, and the kind of political competition that we're going to see within the ANC is competition that you see in any political party as well. But we must be able to tell the story in a convincing way, so people believe that we are heading in the right direction and that the trajectory that we are pursuing is correct. I believe we have a very strong case to remain investment grade unless we shoot ourselves in the foot, and I hope that we don't. Sabelo had asked a question of the Deputy Minister, so he'll come back to that in a moment. How important is the Oak Bay court case? I think it's important to have, on issues like the ones that the court was considering, clarity, so that we have a firm policy basis, in this case decided by a court of law, so that we don't have any haggling like this for the future. I'm very fortunate now I don't have to worry about whether a bank is interfering or not, and we'll see what happens as far as the judgment is concerned, but that clarity I think is quite crucial. Dragging of feet in respect of Habib. Well, what I want to do is take you for a walk and show you I don't drag my feet. Okay, I might even beat you when walking. So, there's no dragging of feet, but there are processes to be followed. Banks are important institutions, and sometimes we forget the simple facts of life about a bank. A bank collects deposits from customers, and it lends out that money that it collects in the form of deposits. And when you want to go and get your cash from a bank that you've actually deposited, the bank must be able to give you back that cash. At the same time, the shareholders of the bank will want to make sure that it makes a certain amount of legitimate profit. So there's three things here. It's the person that you lend money to who must have the ability to pay back. It's the shareholder who must be able to extract a percentage of profit. And it's the depositor who must get a certain amount of interest on the one hand, but also have the assurance that the money is going to be repaid if and when that money is actually required. Secondly, I think 2008 and 9 taught us some very important lessons about banks. That if banks do not have substantial shareholders, and by substantial I mean shareholders who can put in the cash to make sure that the bank has the right kind of liquidity and capital that needs to be held, then banks can find themselves in trouble, like Lehman Brothers did, or Bear Stearns did, and many, or even RBS, the Royal Bank of Scotland, which is owned by the British government today. Right? It is still, after all this time, hasn't worked its way out of the difficulties that it fell into at that particular point in time. So the banking regulator has to ensure that these questions are answered, and they're answered with the appropriate level of information, and that there's a level of comfort with the answers and the proof that is actually provided. Now, the banking regulator has reached a certain point in their decision-making process, and my successor will then have to apply his mind to this issue when he enters the doors of this place. The comeback SMS. The comeback SMS came from the presidency. Despair and can be reversed. Look, countries all over the world will get into modes where they have one kind of difficulty or the other. South Africans, I think, are optimistic by nature, and I'm sure that we will work our way out of this. The key is let's work together to make South Africa a better place for all of us. The relationship between don't get distracted, because this is the last two statements we're going to make now and then close up. And thanks to the colleagues behind me for joining us. The relationship between ourselves and myself and the President, I know the President from 1974. That's when the President and about 10 others were released from Robben Island. And we were amongst the young activists who worked with the President at the time. And when he's got relaxed and has the time, he'll share with you the manner in which we helped him and many other ex-Robben Islanders, and helped him to leave the country as well in 1976. Secondly, we've had no tension between us, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the matters related to the budget are concerned, there's always been very constructive engagements between himself, and not just myself, but the Treasury team broadly as well. So I hope to visit him soon and have a cup of tea and have a chat about the world and the various things that we might have a mutual interest in. Deputy Minister, there was that one question for you, and anything else you want to add?
Sabelo, I think that read what's happening and answer yourself. I think the signs are all there. I mean, and, again, I mean, we might want to avoid it. The reality is that we are at a crossroad as a country. That's the point I was making. And some of the issues that we are talking about are linked to that fact. I think I must thank you. Should I take that? Usurp that power?
Yeah, please do.
Ministers of Finance and too vulnerable.
You know, coup d'etats are dangerous, but please go ahead.
Thank you very much for participating in this press briefing. We thought it's important that we just explain some of the factors that were not clear in different media houses. Some of them were deliberately distorted. We thought it's important that we put across our views and positions on a number of issues that the Minister has outlined. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
certainly in the words of the Deputy Finance Minister, or now the former Deputy Finance Minister, we've witnessed history. We certainly have over the last few hours, witnessing history, not only with that cabinet reshuffle, but also just that huge backlash to the sacking of the Finance Minister. So hearing there really, Francis, from both the Finance Minister and the Deputy Finance Minister, it was really about allaying the fears of the public, I think, and Minister Gordhan speaking on mass mobilization, that all South Africans need to stand together now to ensure that the country remains stable in what we've seen. He also spoke of how he addressed his Treasury staff as their outgoing boss, as if I can call him that, to say that they are committed, his staff are committed to doing their utmost best to continuing the legacy and of the Treasury, of the Office of the Treasury. And interestingly enough, he said that when that space between being called back home and coming back home, he did manage, him and his team, to meet with some investors while overseas. And one of the questions was, will that work be undone? And I think that's what everybody's looking at now. Everyone's looking at the markets. Everybody's saying, will the work that we've done, that we've put in place to stabilize things and avoid downgrades, will that all be undone now?
Well, I think this is an unprecedented press briefing. You saw visuals from inside the venue that members of Save SA, as well as Zimbabwe, head of the new Trade Union Federation, a lot of people arriving in support, and the Deputy Finance Minister earlier given a standing ovation. Also ANN7 given a very hard time by the Minister. And I think what we've seen today is unprecedented criticism of the President, bordering on open revolt. So you said what Gordhan said, and just to add to that, that he said categorically there was no secret meeting, but we'll give you some more details. Let's hear what Zwelin Zimbabwe is saying right now.
The staff here in the Treasury are in pain. They can't believe that in the South Africa they have had to build. This was to be possible. It has been a very long, painful journey of a total capture of every institution of our democracy. And this, for them, is the final stop. They have achieved what they could have not imagined that they will be able to achieve. To the staff, we can only say, hold on there. Don't let them have a blank check in front of their desk. Resist. Tell us one way or another of whatever shenanigans they are going to be implementing when they come over today. Stop corruption. Don't collaborate with crime. This is a darkest hour in the history of South Africa, but we can promise you one thing. Tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday. Zuma and his thugs will not have the last say. Thank you. The people of this country will have the last say. It doesn't matter how long it will take, but they are going to be on their way out very soon, or sooner than they know. Hold on into your positions. Don't let them loot this country in your presence. We disagreed with you on policy so many times. We have marched outside your buildings from the trade union point of view. But we know one thing that we give to you. You are professionals, you are uncorruptible, you are not the looters. And for that, we want to defend you moving forward. So don't despair. Don't you despair even at this moment. Carry on serving this country with everything that you have. Don't collaborate with corruption. We are outside. We are inviting the media to go outside. Our people have now surrounded this building symbolically to stop Kikaba and Buthelezi from coming over today. At lunchtime, we will march to the union buildings, and we are calling on every South African with a conscience. Join us, save our country. This is not a passing picket. We have now started a movement of all of these people you see, and we will stop at nothing that is legal, that is within our constitution, to stop these political hyenas from destroying the future of our children.
We are here to say, remember as a nation the words of our great leader Nelson Mandela, that in the life of every nation there comes a time when you decide whether to fight or submit. South Africans have to make a decision today as to whether they are going to succumb and submit to the forces of corruption or they are going to stand up and fight. This is not a fight. This is not a fight that is a fight of Treasury. This is a fight for the very sovereignty of our nation. Yes. The ANC leadership says, we didn't know where these names came from. It begs the question, where did the names come from? Where did the names come from, therefore? As a democratic country, we elected a political party to run our country, and that's the African National Congress. Who then takes decisions behind it, even when it says no, and proceeds to remove a competent, capable, patriotic Minister of Finance and his deputy, leaders that have demonstrated incredible integrity and honesty, leaders that have taken immense pain and suffering and humiliation, all because they were determined to ensure that the coffers of the state are protected. ANN7 is running a program today. They say Mr. Clean has been elected to take over the Treasury in Malusi Giga. Don't be fooled. The crisis in state-owned enterprises started during his time as the Minister of Public Enterprises. The State of Capture report highlights all the shenanigans that happened at Transnet during his tenure. Now it will become shenanigans across the spectrum of state-owned enterprises and everywhere where there are finances to be managed. This country has to stand up and fight against this. This is not just a fight against corruption. This is a fight in defense of our very sovereignty. The many leaders who fought, laid down their lives, gave up their youth, sacrificed their careers, and gave up everything, delivered a democracy. It is now upon us to do the same. Be prepared to sacrifice and give up everything to defend that democracy and ensure that South Africa and its commitment to the poor remains. Why should the poor worry about whether social grants are going to be paid or not at the beginning of this year? Why should the poor worry that the schools that they're intended to build, if there are 3 schools to be built, only 1 will be built? Where does the rest of the money go? Why should the poor worry that where government has created and has built fantastic clinic infrastructure across the board, when the doctor says this is the kind of medication that you must get when they go to the dispensary, the medication is not there because somebody has taken it to sell it for money. This is humiliating to the poor. This is abuse to the poor. All of us as South Africans, irrespective of our political beliefs, irrespective of our
All right, a technical problem. We seem to have lost sound, and we'll take you back inside that briefing, which started out as the outgoing members of Treasury, the outgoing Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and his deputy SABC Jonas speaking to the press and members of the Treasury as well. But it's become broader. We saw Zwelinzima Vavi arrive, the head of the new Trade Union Federation, the former head of Trade Union Federation COSATU, that of course was in the tripartite alliance, and he started speaking out against the ANC. He's now basically, if you agree with me, Natasha, calling for mass mobilization, open revolt, calling on South Africans to join the members outside there. You can see who will be marching to the union buildings. And we were listening to Sipho Patiana, the leader of SABC, chairman, a director at Anglo Gold, a businessman who has been very outspoken in recent months about the president, and some unprecedented criticism today from these former outgoing high-ranking officials. Pravin Gordhan saying things like he hoped South Africans would show that the country is not for sale, that their souls are not for sale. He was scathing about the attacks that he says he and his deputy have been subjected to.